Welcome to the NWR Aussie Resources Conference. My name's Kerry Stevenson. Now, sit up and take some notice. T92, Terra Uranium, just listed, 20-cent shares. I just had a check of the share price today, 37 cents. He's a happy man. They're up in the Athabasca Basin in Canada, which I know quite well, one of the highest grade uranium spots to be in the world. Andrew, congratulations, and please share with our wonderful audience. And by the way, to the audience, if you'd like to ask questions, please pop them in the Q&A box down below and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. But Andrew, let's go. Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us along today, Kerry. This little presentation we're about to run through was posted this morning onto the ASX, so everybody should have a copy, and if you need a copy, you can download it from there. So everything in here is in the public domain. Yes, we did debut on Thursday. We had a very strong start, and we've managed to hold it pretty well. But I think that's largely because of the uranium and the fact that we're in such an interesting area in the Athabasca in Canada. So I'll quickly flip through the slides. Everybody needs to read the disclaimer. It's all good. Yeah, everyone's read it. Thank you very much. This is where we are. So we're sitting in the Cable Bay Shear Zone in the eastern Athabasca Basin. We feel this is one of the hottest areas in the world for uranium at the moment. Shown on that map there are MacArthur River and Cigar Lake. They're the sorts of analogies that we're using, the two largest and highest grade deposits in the world. I should point out they're not ours, but we're in the same province. And when we were looking, we were really focused on giant or world-class deposits. We were not looking for the smaller things. And we also had to have proximity to a processing plant or a uranium mill where we could actually treat ore when we find a deposit. And that also was a very major factor. As you can see on the map there are, within 100 kilometres of us, there are 3 mills. Those mills are not running at full capacity at the moment. So they certainly do have surplus. And all the big boys are in there. The Oranos, the Camecos are major players. Denison are major players in that area. So we focused on this area, and whilst we were looking through these deposits, we developed a major, our own in-house database of prospects, every drill hole, every sample. And Mike, who we'll talk about in a minute, Mike McClellan came on as our president Canada. He built the database for us of all the prospects and projects, and that focused us into the Cable Bay Shear Zone. This has been identified since the 60s. It's the next major structure over from the one that contains the known deposits. It's a bit similar to some of the situations in WA and other belts where people have found mineralization in one area, then they've said, oh, there's another area nearby that's similar. I guess that the issue with this one was that it's a little bit deeper, but there have been some major advances recently in the extraction of uranium by in situ leach and in situ recovery of both hard rock deposits. We've been doing it for roll front deposits for a long time. We're now moving into doing it for hard rock deposits. And the first ones are now coming along online in the Athabasca. Also looking at it for other metals as well, including copper, but uranium is particularly soluble and particularly suitable. So I put our company together. As I said, we're focused in the Athabasca. The board has been assembled. We're all geologists, but enormous amount of experience in both exploration, project development and production. And we'll talk about the board in a minute, but as you know, Kerry, it's all about the people, and we've got a terrific team. I know everyone says that, but in our case, it's certainly true. The other thing is that we've got 3 groups of tenements there. They're all 100% owned by us. So there are no earnings, no royalties, no offtakes, no people in the background. They're all 100% Terra. They're just us. 775 square kilometres, which is a very large area, but we're in the process of whittling that down to the ones we want to drill. As Kerry said earlier, we listed last Thursday, the 8th. We raised $7.5 million. We were massively oversubscribed, thanks to Niv Dagan and the guys at Peak Asset who organised all that for us. And we're on the ground already. So we commenced work last month in August in the field. We'll be doing airborne geophysics as soon as they can fly, which is either going to be late this month or early next month. We're also using a fairly new technique called ANT seismic, which is a microseismic, passive seismic system developed in Australia. used with a lot of success in South Australia for finding buried deposits, particularly bios minerals. It stands for ambient noise tomography, in case you're interested, but it's a nice name, Ant. And we're also doing surface geochemistry, looking for the signatures of these deposits. We'll be following that with drilling, and we've recently identified and secured a base for our winter drilling. Okay, I'll quickly run through the board because I think this is the key. It's all about the people. I was involved with the formation of Alligator way back 10, 11 years ago. Still on the board there, very successful company. Mike Menzies was talking earlier this afternoon. Also K92, which is a Canadian listed company in Papua New Guinea and gold, a very large group, and a couple of others previously. Daryl Clark is formerly with Cameco and BHP, very senior global exploration roles, and really has the gravitas and ability to be able to focus in on these global deposits. Myself and Daryl have known each other for 20 odd years. Daryl knows Troy because they were together at Cameco, and then Mike was with them also at Cameco, and before that BHP, so a good history there. We all know each other and have worked together before. Troy, excellent young executive, previously with NextGen, where he was responsible for their Arrow project. He spent 5 years on taking that right through the development phase and study phase. Knows the Athabasca back to front, lives in Saskatoon. I guess, Kerry, we were very much focused on building a team that was on the ground local. I mean, if you want to do things, you've got to know the people. And it's very, very hot property up there at the moment. You want to get drill rigs, you want to get access. It's not easy going. So we've got the people who have those connections. Troy's currently the CEO of another Canadian junior, Murchison Minerals, but they're focused in base metals. And Doug Engdahl runs one of the major contracting groups in the Athabasca, has geologists, has access to drill rigs, geophysics, has worked all over the world. Top guy and a good businessman. And Dr. Kylie Prendergast, a world recognised in exploration, hell of a good person, has run major exploration programs and worked with Daryl before, and has worked with me previously at Mining Associates. Extremely good manager, and as well as being an excellent geologist. She's also on the board of Helix. Our management team, these guys, Mike McClelland heads them up, based in Saskatoon. He's full-time with us. He's built the team of people who were under him. Nova Taylor and Vesna are from Atomic. They run along with me the corporate side of things in Australia. We run it very tight. And Jennifer Burgess, who's our exploration manager, she's worked previously on the diamonds up in the Arctic, Diavik Diamond Project. She was responsible for, or one of the team that was in the discovery of that. And I guess most importantly, Kerry is used to working in the Arctic. So these are very, very cold areas. And you need to understand what it's like working at -20 to -40 centigrades. Yes, yeah. Exactly. It's a lot of fun. And Jennifer's an absolute expert at that. She's a really, how do I put it, superb geologist, but also a superb manager. I just put one little slide in here talking about the uranium market, and I know a lot of your other speakers have spoken about this afternoon as well, but I think it's worth just mentioning it because it's been very much up and down, and it feeds into what we're doing. So this is from Visual Capitalist. It's a nice little chart.
Yeah, it's great.
And yeah, I think we've seen it a couple of times this afternoon, but it's a nice.
No, we haven't actually. We haven't. This is the first time people have seen it, Andrew. So go for it.
Goodness gracious. Goodness, it's one of my favourites, Kerry.
It's brilliant. I love it. Yeah, go for it because it hasn't been seen during today. Okay, well, what I might go into a little bit more then for people who are watching today, because it goes right back to 1940, which is when obviously nuclear first took off. And there was quite a boom in production there in the early 50s and 60s. And you can see the US was largely leading that. And then the USSR coming in after that. So they're the two big producers right up until 1990. Now, the big thing that happened there, of course, was the collapse of the Soviet Union. And that just had a massive impact on production because we had a huge amount of weapons grade material coming onto the market for reprocessing and putting back out. So people were very unsure about the price. Price really died.
And really that huge upsurge in exploration in the 70s and 80s really died off in the 90s. And also you see Australia coming through strongly, which is, we're still sitting in there nicely as a major producer, initially with Ranger and then with Olympic Dam coming on, and then Canada. And then gradually you're seeing Kazakhstan. Now, the big change in Kazakhstan, of course, was the ISR roll-front deposits. And they are quite shallow, low production costs, so they were pumping that uranium out quite large amounts. But then we had a little thing happen in Ukraine, and all of a sudden the world changed. And although Kazakhstan itself is not sanctioned, most of their production is shipped out through the Soviet Union, or through Russia rather, and a lot of their logistics comes out of Russia. So what's happening now is they're having trouble getting product out. And this has been announced by Chemico, who are the major partner in there in Kazakhstan. And although their production isn't impacted, getting the uranium out of the country is difficult. And so we're really left with Canada as being the one place that can produce. Canada's got the mills, it's got the deposits. So we see Canada actually as a major uptick. The other thing that's happened, of course, particularly since the war in Europe, is that the US has changed their view on uranium substantially. US Congress has now passed a bill underwriting North American production, not just US, but Canada as well, at US $50 a pound. Now that really does draw a line under the price, and if people look at price charts, you will see that it's been pretty steady now. And of course, the advent of Sprott coming into the market, soaking up any spot market, has made a big difference about a year ago. So we really see the market strong now, with a nice floor at around $50, and the major producer, which is Kazakhstan, struggling to get product out. I suspect that will ease. I mean, they have been very smart about the way they've done things. They're distancing themselves from Russia, but it's still going to be difficult for a while because a lot of their infrastructure is supported by Russian equipment, and the Russians are really struggling. So great chart. If people want to look it up, they can have a look at our Prezzo, or it's in on Visual Capitalist. Where are we? Oh, I've got sidetracked. Here we go. Right, Athabasca. This is what you want to talk about, wasn't it, Kerry?
Yeah, this is the exciting bit.
This is the exciting bit. So a quick, uranium deposits 101 of the Athabasca. We have a very thick sandstone unit, which is the Athabasca Basin. It is a sedimentary basin. It's mostly sandstones and siltstones, flat-lying units sitting above an unconformity into an Archean basement. In the Archean basement, we have some major fault zones, and particularly some graphitic gneisses. And graphite's a wonderful reductant. Uranium's very mobile at that unconformity, and it is very important to have that basin on top. It's a trap, it locks fluids in, and we get a reaction and formation of deposits at the unconformity. And we also get them in the basement. Basement deposits of the style we see outside the basin, like Arrow and a number of others. They sit outside the basin. But it's our view, well, it's not our view, it's a fact that the largest deposits and the highest grade deposits sit at the unconformity or just above it. And we decided to target in on those. The lower long section there is an actual real long section from the Society of Economic Geologists uranium overview of the MacArthur River, which is the largest and highest grade deposit in the world. You'll see that it's sitting under about 500 meters of sandstone, but we are getting leakage of low level, and it is low level, it's only the ppm levels of uranium at surface above the richest. So basically, the bigger the deposit, the bigger the signature, both geophysical and geochemistry. So this is going on to a little bit further. This nice little graph here from Sprott. Thank you for Sprott Uranium Trust. But it's open source data. Across the bottom here, we have the contained resources in millions of pounds, and up the left-hand side is grade. That's in ppm. You knock off 1,000 and you get percents with 100% at the top. The deposits that are sitting up here at around 10%, 5 to 10% right at the top, and the largest size are the ones we're looking for. So these are an order of magnitude higher grade than we get in any other types of deposits. Even Arrow, which is a very large deposit sitting down here at about 2%, we're looking at ones that are more like 10 to 15%, very large deposits. Little cross section of our other type deposit here of Cigar Lake, taken from Jefferson, shows that mineralization is sitting above the unconformity, sitting in the sandstones above the unconformity. Again, for 450 odd meters below surface. Little note there on geology, this quaternary stuff here is glacial. So that's a glacial till. This whole area has been under thick layers of ice in the last ice age. Makes some exploration areas a bit tricky. Just go back to the previous one. This is a nice timeline, courtesy of Alligator Energy. Thank you, Alligator. And as you'll see running across here, timelines, all these major big deposits here were up to about 1990. And we all know what happened in 1990. Price collapsed. Exploration stopped. All these bigger, deeper deposits, that was the end of it. Everybody went chasing shallower things again. Great success with Arrow with Lee Curry and his team at Arrow. And what we're looking at is revitalizing some of this work here. Just emphasizing to people that we do have a process we go through. We are very rigid in how we do things. Mike is a great geoscientist, and we go through a whole series of steps in identifying and whittling down projects. So we're not going to drill the same thing over and over. We're going and looking for the big ones. And this process has put us in on the three main project areas. Right, the first one is HawkRock, which is up in the north. It's the shallowest of our target areas. We're down at around 200 to 400 meters, which means we can use VTEM geophysics, which is a lot shallower. We also expect to see some sort of a maybe 5 to 10 ppm uranium leakage at surface. We had a 9 ppm sample here from some old work that was done by the Geological Survey. Just as an aside, also, these samples were collected in the 1980s, but were only released in 2005. So 25 years when they actually posted them. And a long dispersion train, which is what we'd expect up ice. So the glaciers move in this direction. And if there's a bit of stuff at surface here, it's scraped off and we see it at surface. We have quite good outcrop here. We have quaternary cover, but not a lot. So that's pretty good. This is the area we are planning to drill first, but I should just caution we may drill those meters on one of the other deposits because we'll drill which one we think is the most prospective. As we've developed these projects, Pasfield Lake was the first one we pegged. It's right in the middle and it's our largest holding. It's a really interesting area. It has some old VTEM geophysics, which is showing these areas up here. Is that mouse showing on the screen, Kerry?
Yeah, yep.
Great. There's a very strong anomaly running north-south here in VTEM. If it's VTEM, it only goes down about 400 meters. So we're expecting basement here at 700-800 meters. So there's something very strong here that's showing through the sandstone. Another one here, but we're also getting mineralization at surface. It's relatively weak. It's only in the few ppm levels. There's a little picture from our guys who were out there a couple of weeks ago. And this yellow material is we think carnotite. It's a very low grade alteration product coming out of the rocks, but showing there's uranium present at surface. So that was very encouraging. We're due to fly this in a couple of weeks. The other thing to note here is structural complexity. We're looking for structures in the basement. This big bullseye thing here is some sort of a feature that's lifted the basement by some 400 odd meters, which is a lot. So there's a lot going on here. It's a very structurally complex area. We're right in the cable bay. This is it here. So we think this is pretty exciting. Parker is the third one. This is the most southerly one. You can see it sitting up in here, sitting right in the cable bay, which are these two structures right on one edge. And we have about 30 kilometers strike of a demagnetized zone. This is magnetics in the background. A nice little bullseye anomaly here with a very old type of electrical method called megatem. It's flown by aeroplane. It's very coarse, but it has good depth penetration. And it showed a big bullseye anomaly here. We're going to fly that with ZTEM, which will get us down 1,000 meters. It's an interesting anomaly, and we saw some nice alteration at surface there when we were out mapping it a couple of weeks ago. A bit more of a long shot, but very interesting just the same. So just to bring people up to date, so this is since our last presentation, Kerry. You wouldn't have seen this before.
Nope.
Is this a new one for you?
Yes, and we're running out of time, so we've got to be quick.
Okay, I promised you pictures of what it looks like up there.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And this is our base for the winter. So when we went out there, we found that there's the old camp from the last drilling campaigns are still there. We've requisitioned those, and there's a reading there on one of the carnotite samples, so 7.5 ppm uranium, which is pretty low, but it's there. So that was very encouraging for us. The geophysics signed the contract straight after we listed Friday, and as soon as they can mobilise, equipment's on site, so we should be doing that within the next couple of weeks. It will take a couple of months to process, though. It's a lot of data and it's a large area to cover. Quick note on the capital structure. So we did list last Thursday. We've got 40 odd million shares tradable. We've been trading between 4 and 10 million shares a day, which is amazing. I know, it's just incredible for such a small company, but it is very tight structure. So that's for our investors out there to mention. We have very few shares on issue, fully diluted with options and other things. It's still only 55 million shares. That puts our market cap in the region of 15 to 20 million, which is a nice little company. Very happy with it. And the major point there on the right, most of our money goes direct exploration. So that's not wages, that's not anything else. That's geophysics, geochemistry, drilling. It goes in the ground. ESG, big issue for us. You cannot operate anywhere in the world these days unless you engage very closely with your First Nations people. Canada is different, so your investors should look into that. It's a different system. There is a treaty in Canada, and we operate under the treaty, and it's operated by the state. And a little thank you. And there's our contacts, myself, Mike, and Niv Dagan at Peak Asset in Melbourne.
Andrew, thank you very much. We have run out of time, but I just want to ask one quick question, which is, why are you so confident of making a major discovery?
I think our models showing that if there's a major deposit there, we should be seeing the sorts of signatures we're seeing at surface in the geochemistry. We have the structural complexity. We have previous drilling in the Cable Bay showing significant uranium numbers, not a discovery yet, but significant numbers. And we have the geophysics showing that there's some conductors there. So we're quite confident, no guarantee. We are an exploration company. But if we find something, Kerry, it's going to be big and it's going to be ours.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. T92 just listed last week on a bit of a tear. Athabasca Basin in Canada. Andrew Vigar, Executive Chairman, thanks for joining us at the NWR Aussie Resources Conference today.
My pleasure.